was a little kid and I'd go to sleep early, like 8 o'clock or whatever. Maybe at 10 o'clock, my father would come and wake me up and he'd say, go to the piano, I'm gonna sing. And of course, depending on how tired he was or how late it was, his key would be all over the place. But he would start to sing and I would have to follow him. And so I learned how to play in all these different keys on the piano. It was a fantastic education. It was and continues to be just a part of our lives, like breathing or water. My main inspirations and education musically came certainly from my father and also from the records that I collected. In 1964, we were all at my grandmother's apartment and the Beatles came on, Ed Sullivan, and we all watched it. I went out of my mind and insisted that my mother buy their record for me. And sure enough, the next morning she did. She bought the 45 of I Want to Hold Your Hand back with, I saw her standing there with the picture sleeve, which I still have, absolutely. That was the beginning of, my God, I can play this record whenever I want. I can hear these magical sounds and I could leave my conscious state and travel to this mythical place. And I've been searching for that feeling ever since. Language is Turkish, but the singer was Armenian. I have several of his other records. His name is Yeryazar Efendi. I knew he was a great singer, but the thing that knocked me out is as soon as I heard the introduction, I realized it was Yorgo and Aleko Bajanos, the two Greek masters. They're brothers. Yorgo is the greatest oud player, and his brother Aleko is a great kemençe player, and so there was an added bonus. Of course, their names are not on the label, but as soon as I heard the introduction, I said, oh my God, it's Yorgo and Aleko playing. So the record was worth 20 times what I paid for it. I realized early on, as a youngster, that every Armenian family had records, and most of them didn't want them anymore. Instead of letting them throw them out, I would rescue them. And that became an obsession that continues today. I suppose most normal kids would be out playing during the day after school. I would be obsessively listening to a record. I would go on gigs with my dad, and I suppose because he was the singer and many times the leader of the band, the others had to allow me to play, even though maybe I wasn't professional or up to their standard, but I had the blessing of learning on the stage, learning the craft while doing it.
I had an oud in my house that I used to play just one finger at a time, and I would pluck that oud, frustrated that why is it that I cannot play like some of those virtuose oud players and what have you. I gave the force more to singing. However, I used to come home and Ara would have the oud in his hand, and even though he was young and his arms were short to hug the oud, but he would, and in no time at all, he was, it seems, playing that oud much, much, much better than I was trying for years and so on, you know.
I started with dumbeg and then went on to other instruments, you know. One day my father said, let's go in the car, and we're driving. I said, where are we going? And he said, we're going to the music store. I said, oh, great, why? We have to buy you an electric guitar. We need an electric guitar in the band. I'm like, oh, well, great. I don't know how to play, but great. So he bought me an electric guitar, and I said, so what's going to happen? He said, well, we're playing tonight. I remember that night vividly because you have to play what's called a bar chord. It's a certain position, and you have to develop certain muscles to do that for 4 hours. Well, I kind of did it, but after like 45 minutes, my hands started to cramp because I had not developed those muscles. But again, because it's Onyxan, somehow they let me get through it, and I developed those muscles.
When you have natural talent, you know, and for the same thing, he plays the kanun, urder and ur. From where? Why? Because the kanun is not only just plucking the strings, but you also have to change the keys, and you have to change it before you get to that note. Otherwise, it's not. So, natural talent. As instrumentalists, we are trying to emulate the human voice. It's one of the reasons why the violin is such a popular instrument throughout the world in so many diverse countries, because it's so much like the human voice. The challenge with a string instrument like an oud, when you strike the string, there's this sudden appearance of the note and an immediate decay. How do you sustain a note on an oud, or give it the illusion of sustain? It goes back to Udi Hirant for me. He had this incredible ability, specifically when he played alone, to give the impression of sustain. Part of it was his technique, his approach, his picking. He sang with the instrument. You could actually sing back his improvisations because they were not percussive, they were legato. See what I mean about the sustain? Like a voice. There's a technique involved, but it's more of a state of mind. It's how he hears the instrument. You know? Specifically, my field is music, and that's why I'm obsessed with collecting the earliest records, because I can't move forward until I know the foundation of the music. When I was younger, I just wanted to recreate what I had learned. I can play it like that guy, but you need to move it forward before you leave this earth. And lately I've been doing that by teaching and emphasizing to my students the heavy responsibility they have to learn it as best as they can, and to most of all, share that knowledge with any youngster who is looking at them with some sort of admiration. This is not a private club. This is not something that you own. You are only the caretaker. These records don't belong to me. The music on them doesn't belong to me. I'm the caretaker. It's my responsibility to share it, and as a creative artist, to move the music forward. I go to music when I have no place else to go, and that's usually in the sadder emotions. When I'm happy, I don't look to my instrument. But when I'm sad, when I've lost a friend, or when I'm in love with somebody who doesn't love me, or when I'm frightened, I go to my instrument for comfort, and those are the moments where the best compositions came.
Ağladıkça, ağladıkça dağlarım yeşerecek, göreceksin. Ağladıkça, ağladıkça geceyi tutacağız, göreceksin.
In my opinion, the big enemy of music is the brain. When you're conscious or self-conscious of what you're doing, or how you look, or how you sound, I don't believe, I'll speak for myself, I can't do anything profound or meaningful. But when I'm more of an observer of what's happening, that's when something comes out. If you shut off your ego and your consciousness, what will come out is who you are. And who I am, I called one of my CDs this, an Armenian in America. That's who I am. And that comes out in the music, absolutely.
Bahardan mı yoksa aşktan mı?
I'm a person that has traveled a lot to Turkey. This year alone, I was there 8 times for concerts. And I have gotten to know many Kurdish and Turkish communities who are not represented by their government and who are working diligently to try to not only acknowledge and apologize, but to actually make reparations to the Armenians throughout the world. And I frankly find it much more powerful when a Turk or a Kurd wants to, needs to, and actually does acknowledge, apologize, and express a great horror as to what had happened, and a greater horror to the denial of it. And specifically, I want to say that the Armenians in Turkey are heroes to me, because I don't know of any place where it is as difficult to remain Armenian. And they have held that torch, and I think they need to be recognized and praised.